on that in that space.
All right. Maybe we can chat a little bit more about that today. Um, hey, folks that just joined. So just quick before I get started. Usual disclaimer. Meetings being recorded slash live streamed to YouTube. It will be available publicly. Um, your attendance is accordance to the code of conduct for the Linux Foundation, CNCF, and Tech Security. Um, we would need a scribe. If someone can help scribe, that would be awesome. Just to kind of just take note of like action items and important decision points. Um, cool. So I'm gonna put the document in the chat again. Please sign in if you haven't already. Um, Thank you so much, Marco, for subscribing. Um, any new members that may take a look around? Looks like mostly familiar faces, but if anyone's a new member would like to introduce themselves, please take the mic.
I'll jump in. Hi team, Shaw Klein. I'm a cloud native engineer with a company by the name of Container Solutions. Also a BSc cybersecurity student, so just listening in. Thank you.
Awesome, great to have you. Awesome. Um, so let's continue on that pull on that little thread a little bit on the threat modeling. Um, so one of the I think there were two things that we kind of briefly talked about just now. One of which was how does this link up to the security assessment book, or the book that issue that Justin Campbell's kind of brought up. And I think the second one is just on the document itself to kind of focus a little bit more on the methodology. Um, does it capture kind of what you said earlier?
I think from my perspective, yes. I don't know if Rory has anything further to add.
No, that sounds good to me.
Okay. So on the note on the assessment, so I think this is definitely something that we should influence. I think that the threat modeling part definitely is one aspect, and if we kind of um I had a conversation with Justin about like kind of figuring out like how they're gonna go about with the exercise of writing that. And so I'll make sure that we have carved off like a part of it which is discussing threat models, and that can we just take the work that's done here and just put it there. So I think we just making sure that we have synergy on that, we're not duplicating work. So I will take that as a to-do item, to check with Justin and make sure that this work integrates nicely with that. Um, is the okay? I think that settles the first issue. Um, any other concerns about that? I'll just share. If not, I'll just share with Justin and we figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's been tagged in the issue as well. And I think Justin said he was going to look at all the material, right, and kind of create a structure where things integrate, so that it should be fine.
Okay.
I guess the other part of that is we still need to continue with this in the meantime, right? This initiative,
Yep.
we won't pause it.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm looking through the looking through the doc again. Let's see. I'll just share it so it's easier for us to take a look at. Um, So this is pretty much the template more for like what the project is gonna fill up or filling it up with the project, right? Kind of like a self-assessment. And then you mentioned that when you're talking about methodology, are you thinking more like um, how you should feel, how you should think about some of these things, like setting up like the matrix and things like that?
Yeah, to provide a bit of context, this kind of template comes from the Kubernetes threat model that was done. Yeah, basically
License
from
secure,
the
yeah.
Kubernetes threat model, and it was Mozilla RRA with some modification to add, I think, like control kind of domains.
Mhm.
And I guess my initial piece was, or my initial question is, have we agreed as a group like what the methodology we should use, what methodology should be used for doing risk assessments? Is it Mozilla RRA based, or is it going to be something like an iteration on the kind of 4 questions approach? And do we sort of add some kind of description as to kind of basically how to use the template and what methodology it's kind of geared around, right? Because this kind of almost takes the approach that we've definitely used a similar approach to the Kubernetes threat model. Again, an iteration of Mozilla RA. I haven't personally used that, so I would like to understand, how do we make the template easier to use by adding that? How do we make the template usable by adding some descriptive information to it and some guidance? Or do we even take a step further back and go, that's not the correct approach? Because I recall in a meeting, I guess in mid-September, we were umming and ahhing, right? I think Rory was kind of pro 4 questions. I was a bit more on the fence.
Yeah, I think for me, it was more a question of like not getting into anything too heavyweight. So exactly which lightweight methodology we use, I'm not super like it's not like what I would say it had to be that one or anything like that. But that I just felt that, where you've got people who are new to it, if you go into one of the more heavy threat modeling, you can get a bit into the weeds with the buzzwords and the terminology. It can feel a bit impenetrable. But I mean, I haven't used RRA, but just a quick look through it. It looks fairly lightweight as well. So if that's a closer fit, that seems reasonable.
So I guess is the action to kind of add a section as to how we use the template, link to resources, and just work on that piece, and just leave the template for the most part as is, right?
Yeah, I think what what comes to mind also is like figuring out maybe we can have 1 or 2 project maintainers come by, join us in this discussion, and I think like the flux tendency will be a good exercise, right?
Yeah.
Maybe maybe a good experiment, given that we're not like creating these models from scratch. Maybe a good experiment is to have one being done in 4 questions and one being the RA, and try that out.
Yeah, and I've invited the Flux team, I think, for December the 7th, just waiting on a response to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could definitely then try it within that meeting.
I'm very pro reusing stuff. I guess I have a quick question on that, right? So we talked about like, oh, how should you fill this up in the methodology? And I think my question in the evaluation is also like, which one are people generally more familiar with, and also the resources that are available? Because I don't think if this is something that we're reusing, I don't think we're gonna reinvent the wheel with anything too like we don't rewrite the guide, but maybe just provide some pointers of like, oh, if you're using cloud native, think a little bit more about this and that. Yeah, so I think that's just something else to think about as well. Cool. So I think there's an action item here that after Flux, we probably should find one more project to kind of come in and do a threat model as well. I think Cubescape. Oh no, wait, we had let me look at the list of projects.
Yeah, we are going to present next week, but it's more of a Kubernetes oriented and workload oriented threat modeling.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think Cube like I mean yeah, I anything can be threat model, right? So yeah, I think that would be a good choice. And also I think Cube Vela was also looking for some feedback, so that may be a good choice as well. Cool. It looks like yeah, at the end of this exercise, basically, I think we would have to write a document to say like, we picked this thing, here are additional resources, why do we pick it, and how you should use it. But we can do that after we've kind of gone through it and made the refinements of that.
There's a security assessment kind of guide as well, right, within the tech security
That's correct.
GitHub repo, and it'd be interesting to work out how this neatly fits in there, right?
Yeah, so here's the conversation from our previous TL meeting. We were chatting about the threat modeling stuff, and this was mainly around Argo CD. Basically, we realized like the threat model for Argo CD was less than less complete as we would like it to be. Obviously, scope of things can quickly devolve, so you know that's also a another question. And I think like we started identifying basically, so there's the self-assessment process and then the security review, right, the joint review. And I think one of the things we discussed to make some changes to were in the self-assessment process, you would identify the columns and rows of your threat model. Threat matrix. But not necessarily have to fill up the matrix. And then going forward in the security review, then we will fill out the matrix and we will have a review on like, does the way that you filled out the matrix make sense? And would that methodology kind of fit with the flow of the RRA model in this case? Okay, I see nothing, so I'm assuming yes. Okay. Okay. So, I think one part that I'm kind of looking through this is, so this is writing down the threat scenarios and threat model, threats and all that stuff. Is what is the outputs of the threat model that this will produce? Like, would this produce a threat matrix, or is it just going to be the set of answers and questions, and that this document would kind of be the output rather than just a working document? I'm not familiar with RA, by the way, so I'm asking a lot of dumb questions.
I don't know if you know, Ron. I've not done enough or much any RRA to know what the output of these usually looks like, to be honest.
So I think as the template, this is meant to represent the output, but it kind of fundamentally looks like a kind of responses to a list of questions rather than a kind of formalized matrix, right?
Yeah.
That you define you brainstorm a whole bunch of threat scenarios and how that can go wrong. Then you have a separate section that looks at where there are deficiencies in the controls. And from those two, you create a list of recommendations, right? That's how I kind of read into this.
Yeah, it's not too clear from that template, but yeah, I think after that recommendations heading, that's where the stuff's meant to go. So your outputs essentially are a set of recommendations for the project to say, here's how you address the identified threats. Sounds like, anyway.
And we can go back and have a look at the Kubernetes threat model for reference, right? Because that's where what this template is derived off of.
Well, I'm guessing they didn't try and do that in 60 minutes, I'll be honest. I'd be surprised if they did.
Oh yeah, it's a big project.
Need a longer.
And so this aspect also of attack trees. Is it something that is in scope here? It sounds like it would be cool and useful to have, but at the same time, it sounds like additional work.
Yeah, and
doesn't Andy love attack trees? I'm sure he loves attack trees.
He's made me write plenty of them. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to love attack trees.
Yeah, we do like them. They're extremely time consuming. They're obviously very thorough. They have good benefit, but does that fit into, it's going to take a significant amount of effort to create one.
I did something kind of similar, but slightly maybe lighter weight than a kind of formal attack tree. I did there's an admission controller threat model that I did for the Kubernetes SIG security. And that used a thing called deciduous, which creates kind of like lightweight, easy to do attack trees. The formal one looks scary.
What's it? How do you spell that?
Deciduous, like the trees. Hold on, let me find it.
Sorry, I'm really bad at.
I know, I'm terrible with it as well. I'm actually going and typing it in because otherwise I'm going to get it wrong. Attack. I'll sure I can find the post. Here we go.
It's Kelly Shortridge's project, isn't it?
Yeah, that was Kelly, and there you go. That's the link to their thing.
No, I've been able to tell that.
And that just, if I find the docs. Okay. That was the threat model for admission control. Had an attack tree in for that.
Okay. So. Visual high. Okay, cool.
That's everything. That's interesting. So everything revolved fundamentally around creating that attack tree, right? Identifying threats, mapping controls onto branches, and so forth.
Yeah, it was kind of an idea. The attack tree is down the bottom. We just did threats mitigations and then came up with the tree down the bottom of how they all map together. The only problem is I need to go and add something to it now, and now it's going to be a pain because you have to redo the mapping.
So this gets generated automatically by the...
Yeah, you basically put in Markdown, and it automatically generates the graph. So as long as you basically put in the threats and the things that mitigates them, or if they're not mitigated, and then it automatically lays out a graph for you, so you don't have to. So it means you don't have a lot of overhead if you're doing the threats and mitigations anyway. There's not a lot of overhead to then add the tree.
Mm. Okay, so the threats, and I see.
Yeah. So you go right down the bottom of the markdown page, that page you're on there.
Okay,
There's a
that's
text
right.
block down the bottom, which actually has the markdown. Yeah, there it is there.
I see.
So you have like facts. So it's installed in the cluster as a fact. It uses a webhook as a fact. And then you say, okay, from those facts, what are the attacks? And then on the attacks, then what mitigates the attacks? And that then automatically generates the graph. So once you get started with it, it's kind of fast to write. I don't know how fast ordinary attack trees are to write though. What I'm guessing it might be slightly more complex.
Yeah, I kind of try to imagine, right? I think the um I feel like to me this attack tree, at least for the security reviews and threat assessment, is kind of serves also as like an education bit to kind of visualize and like think about, oh, actually like these is how like how someone's gonna break into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So if we take a look at this, we have threat scenarios. Each threat scenario would map onto a bunch of attacks.
Yeah. Something we might want to do if we do like a sample one, we've got that one coming in December. What we could do is see how, I can have to take a look and see how complicated it would be to do that, whether it's worth the effort. Because some people like the visual format, some people it's less of a problem.
Right. Yeah. This is a cool one. Yeah, I think definitely something to consider. I really like the markdown stuff as well.
I know, I like doing everything in Markdown. It's like my hobby. So I can do it in Markdown, I'm happier. Because then, I can just put the note in Obsidian.
Yeah, I kind of wish we changed our meeting notes to heck empty, but gotta be using that for now. Cool. And I think one of the things that my question here is also like, besides the attack tree, let's say we have this list of threats. Are we able to make a matrix out of it? Because I think this doesn't quite translate. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need a threat matrix.
So you're talking about along the lines of like the MITRE attack matrix kind of format, right? Just to get everyone on the same page.
I think so, and if that's like I think the one that I always kind of go back to is the one that we did for Swiftly Inspire. I think that one was so like bunch of like attack vectors or like capabilities, right? So like identity theft, misrepresentation, compromise, denial of service, and then saying like oops, shit, I no. Oh, okay, I guess this was and basically saying that what's the risk of these things happening. and what's the impact of these things happening at the particular node. So for example, if you're a secrets management database and then your key server gets compromised, and it's really, really bad. But if your database gets compromised, it's bad, but it's not that bad if everything's encrypted. So kind of, because I think one thing that one of the use cases of using the assessments is pretty much like, oh, if I'm using this project, because I think traditional, like most users of threat models, I think are kind of like, oh, how do I improve my security as a project, and assess it. And this one is kind of more, if I'm using this project, what are the particular considerations, or like, oh, do I have to focus a little bit more on the deployment of XYZ? Which I think it gets equivalent at a certain level, but just like the presentation of information.
And this is interesting. So you've got, if the attacker takes over a server, an agent, a container on the same node, or a container on a different node, how could they pivot to attack the things in column A to, in this case, obtain,
Yeah, so this one
achieve
is just
their outcome, which is about identity theft?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting to have a look at this and understand how it's scored. Again, I think it's probably, and it kind of goes back to like the scope of the threat modeling work. I imagine this would be quite a lengthy document to put together, right?
Yeah.
Project. You look.
This one was
but...
yeah. This one took a while because basically the Swiffy Inspire folks already had like a threat modeling thing, and this like went on for like weeks and months. So I just putting this up as an example, just to think about it.
Yeah. It's worth adding as a decision at the bottom of the current template.
I think I would say maybe like one of the things that I would say adding to the recommendations in terms of let me write this here and then we can delete it if I think it's like having recommendations for the project, but also having recommendations of users of the project. Or is that kind of really encapsulated within like?
Yeah, so this comes up all the time. So it's recommendations for maintainers of the project, and then recommendations for users so that they configure it correctly and avoid pitfalls.
So another question I have for this is like, if there is a change in, like, let's say in a year we have to do a reevaluation of the threat model, would the exercise be pretty much similar? I just like going through the questions, did anything change on this particular thing, and going forward with that?
I guess you'd hope it'll be easier just because you've got a lot of the information. It's more about what's changed. But yeah, there is an interesting point about how long do these things stay fresh for, either in concept of time or in number of releases. Because I guess some projects change more quickly than others. If it's relatively static, maybe there's not much need for revisiting. But if it's a quickly developing project, then yeah.
Okay.
It's a slightly naive question. Is there so I understand that obviously at each stage in the like CNCF project lifecycle, there has to be some kind of security review and so forth. But is there any kind of requirement for this to happen on a regular basis time-wise, or does it only happen when the project is going through different stages in the
It
life.
usually happens when the project is going through different status. And I think like one of the things that there is a little bit of dance there in terms of like, oh, how much of this is like doing an evaluation of the security versus evaluating just the posture of security. I think we tend to go towards the posture, right? So I think just like having the initial exercise of like, oh, here's how you threat model. Now the maintainers know how to threat model and they thought about all these things. So then we are in much better place than we were. I think that is kind of like we kind of have to assume that they go forward continuing this thinking and not just like throw all of them in the bin and then continue working on the project. And I think that's as far as our knowledge can go. Um, for projects where security is more fundamental to the entire ecosystem. So all projects when they graduate, they go through an actual security audit, so more of a code audit. And I think that is when like all these things get revisited again. The audit company will use the initial threat models that we've developed to help them as well. So it's rare that we've had it. I don't think we've done a follow-up on any project yet to be like, oh, yeah, 1 year later, let's figure out where we are at, whether we need to change the threat model. It's pretty much in like, oh, here's the general gist of it, and your project shouldn't change as much. And if it does, we hope that you go update this threat model, or at least like do the threat modeling on your own when you're doing the project. I did have one question about this. So this brings back into a very interesting conversation very early on in the CNCF projects, where we had a security assessment / audit of like Prometheus. And I think one of the things that was a big discussion point was what's in scope and what's not in scope. So one of the things was like, oh, Prometheus was like, yeah, we don't care about the scope of the, I think it was like storage security. But that was like critical in terms of like being able to use Prometheus securely. So with, I was also wondering, like, is there when answering these questions, is there usually an initial idea of like, I see this section on like, how you should scope it and things like that. But are there any like questions that can help scoping as well?
It would be good, I guess, to ask to kind of address that kind of problem. I suppose what we might want to do is have something around how do people typically use this product, because that captures that piece. So you're saying about it might not, the project might not care, but typical users might care. And you'd expect a project to have a good idea of how people could use the project. What's a standard deployment look like? What's a standard use case? Because Prometheus, had an interesting view of certain things with security.
Cool. I guess any other thoughts around this? Because I know I may be bringing up discussions that have been discussed and don't want to rehash them too much. Yeah, any thoughts around this? It's not. I feel like this is kind of like the next steps is just doing it and trying it out.
Yeah, it needs to be fleshed out, and hopefully, if the Flux team can agree to that 7th of December date, then it's kind of a timeline for finishing this template off with some guidance and then going and trying it out for the first time.
Sounds good. I just want to make sure that we have the.
This issue 903, I think.
I'm just gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna update this top level issue to capture that. I also want to add a kind of like general schedule. So we have 7th December. Flux. And see. Model exercise. And then probably after that, the rest of December kind of do a review of postmortem of threat model exercise and evaluation. And we mentioned about just quick things to do. Reconcile threat modeling into security assessment process. Maybe trying out another project with another model. Did I miss anything or anything else that we want to add to this list?
Looks good to me.
Okay. I think that's also, I need to link this to issue 999. Cool. Are there any topics that folks want to bring up for today's call?
One very quick question. Do we know when, I know this is like conference after conference, do we know when the Cloud Native Security Con for the one that goes with KubeCon in April next year. What are there any ideas on CFP dates for that yet? I'm guessing it might be pushed back because of the CFP for the February one.
Yeah, so that's still in flux. Where like, so we've talked to Chris and Angela from the LF, and I can tell you, I can share with you the high level thinking, and then tell you what's going, like what the current decision is. So the high level thinking is that I think there's been a lot of confusion with like, oh, is this gonna be just an upgrade of the Colo event into a standalone, or like what is it? I think it's a little bit of the Linux Foundation thinking, okay, we are able to take the idea of this Colo and then create a standalone event.
Yeah.
So the from kind of like reading the tea leaves of things, it sounds like they want to have a little bit more control over that and push that forward. Obviously, consulting with us on things, but at the same time, I think they want to probably bring in other partners into that. That's at least like where I think it's going, right? They want to bring in the AppSec stuff and like other members. So that's the general thought of it. So the effect of it is that they mentioned that it doesn't mean that we're removing the co-located event. Definitely, it will influence whether there'll be co-located event. They are planning to cut down colos to probably like 1 day in general. So just independently for the fact that KubeCon wants to cut colo, like the number of days of the conference, we may end up with just a 1 day now. But I think we are also open to the idea of like, oh, can we do like I think this Andy and Andres kind of mentioned this, was like, or maybe like a security village or something like that. Have a slightly different format. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I was just thinking because obviously I'm guessing everyone's, because with KubeCon deadlines coming up, you're like, okay, that's where KubeCon is now. Where does the other one fit in?
Yeah, and to as someone that's organized a last minute conference and open source summit before, it can be, I think we give it, the latest date would be 2 months before the actual conference, but usually it's like more like 3 or 4 months before the conference.
Cool.
Based on the Cloud Native Security Con Seattle CFP date ends on, I want to say like next week.
Next Sunday, I think.
Next Sunday. Yeah. So if keep that in mind to submit things. I'm trying to figure out what to submit as well. I feel like it's a bit too soon from KubeCon.
Sunday, November 13th, 11:59 Pacific.
November 13th. Okay. So we have another three, 4 more days.
Oh, I'm afraid I looked at that one and thought Seattle's a very long way away. And I've done the flight. I've done the flight from UK to Seattle, and it's not fun.
I can imagine. Cool. Yeah, and then next year will be Amsterdam. So hopefully we'll meet up
nice
there.
And close.
I'm very excited.
Lots of direct flights to Amsterdam. The good thing about Amsterdam is you can fly from almost anywhere to Amsterdam. So yeah, big hub.
I still have the KubeCon t-shirt from like when you're doing Amsterdam like 4 years ago, and then they canceled it from COVID. So I'm gonna wear that.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Cool. Any other things people want to bring up or just want to talk about? You know, I offered to talk to have a discussion on the OpenSSL stuff last week on the NA call, but seems like by then the criticality score dropped and everyone was like, nah, no one cares about it.
Everyone's moved on.
Yeah. Maybe this is a new marketing trend, you know, to make your project popular. You'll be like, I'm dropping a huge critical component. Just kidding.
Well, I could tell you that these CVs they are bringing a lot of traffic. So these are exactly what you're saying. These are marketing bombs.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
imagine, right? Cool. If not, if we don't have anything else, I guess we can all have extra 10 minutes back.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool.